Welcome to the American Gazetteer. Tonight, we turn the pages of the great national atlas back to the year 1846. We journey east of the Allegheny Mountains, to the banks of the majestic Hudson River, to a region of romantic highlands, fertile butterlands, and sweeping river vistas situated between the Shawangunk Mountains and the water. We travel to the verdant, industrious, and historically rich district of Orange County, New York. In the year of our Lord 1846, Orange County stood as the pastoral jewel of the Hudson Valley. According to the census records of the previous year and the estimates of the current year, the population of this fertile triangle numbered approximately 52,200 industrious souls. These inhabitants were the descendants of the sturdy Dutch patent holders, the Scots-Irish Presbyterians, and the English Quakers who had first cleared the wilderness to find a land of milk and honey. They were a people noted for their thrift, their piety, and their unwavering devotion to the cultivation of the soil. The county forms itself an irregular yet pleasing shape upon the map, enclosing an area of 838 square miles, or roughly 536,000 acres of land. The boundaries of Orange County in 1846 were established with the geometric precision of the surveyor's chain and the natural flow of the waters. To the north, the county line adjoined the rugged lands of Ulster County, marked in part by the winding Shawangunk. To the east, the mighty Hudson River formed a liquid barrier separating the dairymen of Orange from the brickyards of Dutchess and Putnam counties. To the southwest, the rocky hills of Rockland County formed a rugged border. To the southwest, the boundary line touched the sovereign state of New Jersey. To the west, the Delaware River and the Mongop River separated the county from the lumber regions of Sullivan County and the coal-rich lands of Pennsylvania. The topography of Orange County is a study in contrasts, a landscape divided by the ancient hand of nature. It is a land of mountains and meadows, of rocky precipices and velvet pastures. The southeastern portion is dominated by the Highlands of the Hudson, a chain of granitic hills that rise suddenly from the water, crowned with forests of oak and chestnut. Here stand the sentinels of Storm King, Crow's Nest, and Breakneck Ridge, guarding the entrance to the highlands. In the central and western districts, the land softens into the rolling hills of the slate and limestone formations, known locally as the Butterbelt. This is the land of the Wallkill Valley, a broad and fertile basin renowned for its sweet grasses and clear springs. To the west, the Shawangunk Mountains rise like a wall of white rock, their rocks shining in the setting sun. The highest point, High Point, overlooks the tri-state valley where the waters of the Neversink meet the Delaware. The soil of the county varied with the elevation. In the river bottoms, it was a deep, rich alluvium, capable of producing massive crops of corn and onions. On the uplands, it was a warm, gravelly loam, perfectly suited for the grazing of cattle and the cultivation of rye. The drowned lands of the Wallkill, a vast tract of marsh and peat in the southern townships, were in 1846 the scene of great drainage efforts, promising a soil of inexhaustible fertility. The hydrography of the county is extensive and soothing to recite. The waters of the county are the lifeblood of its agriculture and the motive power of its industry. The principal stream of the interior is the Wallkill River, a slow, northward flowing river that drains the rich black dirt of the drowned lands. It winds lazily through the townships of Minnesink, Goshen, Hamptonburg, Wallkill, and Montgomery, bordered by willows and sycamores. The list of tributaries and independent streams is a litany of native and colonial names. There is the Moodna Creek, or Murderer's Creek, which drains the central uplands and empties into the Hudson near Cornwall. There is the Quassick Creek, the Stony Brook, which provided power for the mills of Newburgh. There is the Ramapo River, flowing south through the iron-rich hills of Monroe W1. There is the Neversink River, a wild and clear stream that tumbles down from the Sullivan Hills. There is the Otterkill. There is the Shawangunk Kill. There is the Dwarkill. There is the Indigot Creek. There is the Monhagen Brook. There is the Pochuck Creek. There is the Rutgers Creek. Each of these streams, in the year 1846, meandered through fields of clover and timothy, crossed by wooden bridges that rumbled softly under the wheels of the milk wagons. The natural covering of the land, where the plow had not yet conquered, attributed to noble forests. In 1846, the woodlots of Orange County were still extensive, providing timber for building and fuel for the hearth. The mountains were clothed in dense stands of rock oak, hickory, and chestnut. In the valleys, the sugar maple, the elm, and the black walnut grew to immense proportions. The air of the county in 1846 was sweet, with the scent of wild grapes and the blossoms of the locust trees that lined the turnpikes. It was a landscape of peace, of order, and of quiet abundance. In the geographic center of this varied and beautiful landscape sat the inland capital, the village of Goshen. But in the year 1846, Orange County possessed a unique political geography, maintaining two shire towns, the agricultural capital of Goshen and the riverside, commercial capital of Newburgh. These two villages, separated by 20 miles of rolling farmland, represent the dual nature of the county, the plow and the sail, the farm and the market. Goshen, situated in the heart of the Old Orange, was in 1846 a village of quiet dignity and ancient lineage. The streets were broad and shaded by century-old elms, their branches meeting overhead to form a green cathedral. The architecture of Goshen was conservative and substantial, reflecting the wealth of the surrounding dairy farms. The county courthouse, newly constructed in 1842, was a handsome edifice of the Greek Revival style, its white columns gleaming against the red brick. Here, the judges sat to hear the disputes of the land, and the deeds of the county were recorded in heavy ledgers. The Bank of Orange County, established in 1813, stood on the main street, a pillar of financial stability for the drovers and buttermakers. The First Presbyterian Church, with its tall spire visible for miles across the flat meadows, was the spiritual anchor of the community. In 1846, Goshen was famous throughout the nation for its butter. Goshen butter was the gold standard in the markets of New York City in the South, packed in wooden firkins and stamped with the yellow label that guarantees its sweetness. The village was also the center of the trotting horse trade, where the rich limestone pastures produced horses of exceptional speed and stamina. 20 miles to the east, clinging to the steep banks of the Hudson River, lay the village of Newburgh. In 1846, Newburgh was a bustling hive of commerce, the terminus of the turnpikes that brought the produce of the interior to the river. The streets of Newburgh rose in steep terraces from the water's edge, offering panoramic views of the Newburgh Bay and the Highlands beyond. The waterfront was a forest of masts. Sloops, schooners, and the new steam-powered vessels crowded the wharves, loading firkins of butter, barrels of flour, and herds of livestock for the trip downriver to New York. The commercial life of Newburgh was centered on Water Street and Front Street. Here stood the great forwarding warehouses of the Powells, the Ramsdells, and the Crawfords. The Bank of Newburgh, incorporated in 1811, and the Highland Bank, incorporated in 1834, held the wealth of the merchants. The Powell Bank, founded by the influential Thomas Powell, was another engine of local prosperity. Newburgh was also a place of history. The old Hasbrook House, constructed of rough stone, stood on the bluff south of the village. Here, General Washington had made his headquarters during the final years of the Revolution. 2. In 1846, it remains a site of pilgrimage, its gray stone walls echoing the memory of the Continental Army. The architecture of Newburgh was more varied than Goshen, featuring the Dutch colonial stone houses of the early settlers alongside the brick mansions of the merchant princes. The Newburgh Academy and the Heiberg Academy provide education for the youth, while the aspirations of the Presbyterian, Episcopal, and Associate Reformed churches watched over the spiritual welfare of the port. Connecting these two capitals was the New York and Erie Railroad, which had reached Goshen in 1841.36. In 1846, the sight of the steam locomotive puffing through the meadows of Chester and Goshen was still a marvel to the rural population. The railroad depot at Goshen was a center of daily excitement, where the milk cans were loaded onto the cars for the rapid journey to the city. This new artery of iron was beginning to shift the flow of trade, bringing the back country into closer communion with the metropolis. Leaving the gas-lit streets and brick pavements of the county seats, we turn our attention now to the northern tier of townships. This region, including the townships of Montgomery, Crawford, Newburgh, and New Windsor, is a land of rolling surface, fertile soil, and a population engaged primarily in agriculture and local manufactures. It is bounded on the north by Ulster County and on the east by the town of Newburgh. The surface is undulating and the soil consists of a productive gravelly loam. The town is drained by the Wallkill River, which flows through the central portion, and by the Tin Brook. In 1846, the population of Montgomery was approximately 4,100 souls. The principal villages within the township are Montgomery and Walden. The village of Montgomery is located on the east bank of the Wallkill River. It contains an academy, several churches, and a number of mercantile stores. The village of Walden is located at the high falls of the Wallkill River. The river at this point descends over 40 feet, affording extensive water power. In 1846, Walden contained the Walden Woolen Factory, a cotton factory, and a satin net factory. The prominent family names in the town of Montgomery include the Millspaws, the Moulds, the Eagers, the Bookstavers, the Christ family, the Sears family, and the Weller family. The town of Crawford lies to the west of Montgomery, bordering the county of Ulster. The surface is hilly and broken, forming a part of the slate region. The soil is a clay loam, well adapted to grazing. The principal streams are the Shawangunk Kill, which forms the western boundary, and the Wharwick. In 1846, the population was approximately 2,000. The settlements include the village of Pine Bush and the hamlet of Bullville. The latter was named for the Bull family, who were among the earliest settlers and landholders. Other surnames common to the district in this period include Crawford, Thompson, Rainey, and Weller. The agriculture of the town was devoted largely to the production of butter and the raising of stock. The town of Newburgh, excluding the village, comprises a rich agricultural district extending along the Hudson River. The soil was a sandy loam and clay, highly favorable for the cultivation of fruit. The cultivation of apples, pears, and peaches was a significant industry in 1846. The orchards of the Downing family were located in this township. The creeks draining the town include the Quasaic Creek and the Gidneytown Creek. The hamlet of Balmville was north of the village, named for a great balm of Gilead tree that stood in the center of the road. The prominent families of the rural districts included the Belknaps, the Bloomers, the Gardeners, and the Fowlers. The town of New Windsor was situated south of Newburgh, bordering the Hudson River. The surface was uneven and hilly. The Moodna Creek flows through the center of the town, receiving the waters of the Silver Stream. The soil was fertile in the valleys. This town was the site of the cantonment of the Continental Army in 1783. In 1846, the village of New Windsor, located on the river, was a point for the shipment of brick and lumber. The village of Salisbury Mills, located on the Moodna Creek, contains paper mills and grist mills. 4. Descending southward from the rolling hills of the northern tier, we enter the broad, undulating basin that forms the geographic and agricultural heart of the county. This central district, including the extensive town of Wallkill and the rugged town of Mount Hope, is a landscape defined by deep, gravelly loams and a network of winding streams that feed the great Wallkill River. During this era, the region was the epicenter of the agrarian transition, a land where the dairy cow was becoming queen, and the rhythm of life was measured by the churning of the cream and the whistle of the locomotive. The town of Wallkill occupies a territory of imperial dimensions, stretching from the banks of the river in the east to the rocky slopes of the Shawangunk Mountains in the west. It is a land of diverse topography, where the level meadows of the bottoms give way to the slate ridges of the interior. The hydrography of the township is extensive and worthy of recitation. The Monhegan Brook rises near the center and flows southward, watering the farms of the valley. The Wallkill drains the northern districts with a sluggish current. The little Shawangunk Kill waters the western frontier, tumbling over rocks and shale. The Wallkill meanders through the northeast, bordered by willows and elms. The Honeypot Creek and the Muddy Kill add their waters to the drainage. Each of these streams turned the wheels of sawmills and gristmills, converting the timber of the ridges and the grain of the valleys into wealth for the inhabitants. The social and commercial focus of this district was the rapidly growing village of Middletown. At this time, Middletown was transitioning from a sleepy hamlet into a bustling depot town, stimulated by the recent completion of the New York and Erie Railroad to this point. The village is located in a pleasant valley, surrounded by sloping hills. Its streets, North Street, South Street, Main Street, High Street, and Orchard Street, were lined with fresh frame buildings, smelling of pine and paint. The spires of the Presbyterian, Congregational, Baptist, and Methodist churches rose above the elms, marking the spiritual centers of the community. The Wallkill Academy, incorporated in 1841, stood on a commanding eminence, its halls filled with the youth of the county seeking instruction in the classics, the mathematics, and the sciences. Beyond the village, the township was dotted with hamlets of singular charm. Scotchtown, located on the high ridge to the north, preserves the severe piety of its Scottish founders. The ancient Presbyterian church there stood as a landmark for miles, its cemetery filled with the slate markers of the pioneers. Circleville, Mechanicstown, Phillipsburg, Rockville, and Howells thrived, were post villages, each with its store, its smithy, and its cluster of dwellings. The family names of Wallkill were a roll call of the early immigrants, the Wisners, the Phillips family, the Corwins, the Hortons, the Dentons, the Mapes, the McWhorters, the Wickhams, the Wellers, the Dunning family, and the Hulse family. These families lived in substantial farmhouses, often flanked by the large, distinctively vented butter barns that were characteristic of the region. To the west of Wallkill lies the town of Mount Hope, a rugged district formed from parts of Wallkill, Minnesink, and Deer Park. As its name suggests, it is a region of hills and commanding views. The Shawangunk Mountains traverse the western portion, their rocky summits covered in scrub oak and pitch pine. The village of Mount Hope and the hamlet of Otisville were the principal centers. Otisville was a place of considerable activity due to the railroad, which navigated the difficult terrain of the Shawangunk Gap nearby. The deep rock cuts and high embankments of the railroad here were considered marvels of engineering. The streams of Mount Hope include the Indigot Creek and the headwaters of the Little Shawangunk. The family names of this district include the Finches, the Seabolts, the Penny family, the Greenleafs, and the Mulocks. Moving eastward into the central basin of the county, we entered the town of Hamptonburg, a triangular wedge of land that was often called the Garden of the County. Formed in 1830 from parts of Goshen, Blooming Grove, Montgomery, and New Windsor, it is a town of gentle ridges and fertile flats. The Otterkill, a stream of dark, slow-moving water, winds through the center of the town, bordered by meadows of lush timothy and clover. This stream, celebrated for its pastoral beauty, provides the water for the immense herds of red Devon and Durham cattle that grazed its banks. The Beaver Dam Creek and the Black Meadow Creek intersected the southern portion, their courses marked by thickets of alder and willow. Hamptonburg was a town of estates rather than villages. There were no large manufacturing centers here, only the quiet, shaded hamlets of Campbell Hall, LaGrange, Otterville, and Purgatory. The most historic edifice in the township, and indeed one of the most significant in the county, was the Bull Stone House. Built in the 1720s by William Bull and Sarah Wells, this massive stone dwelling stands on a rise overlooking the countryside. By this period, it was still inhabited by the descendants of the builders, the Bull family being one of the most prolific and widespread clans in the county. The genealogy of Hamptonburg was rich with names that echoed through the history of the state. The Booth family, the Eagers, the Watkins family, the Monells, the Thompsons, the Jacksons, and the Hawkins family were all prominent landowners. Morning and evening the milk was drawn, set in shallow pans for the cream to rise, churned into butter, salted, and packed into firkins made of white oak. These firkins, stamped with the maker's name, were carted to the depot at Goshen for shipment to New York, where Hamptonburg butter commanded a premium price. The roads of this central district were kept in excellent repair, lined with miles of stone walls built from the field stones cleared by generations of labor. Adjoining Hamptonburg to the south is the town of Chester. In the mid-19th century, Chester was rapidly becoming the most famous dairy town in America. The village of Chester, divided into East Chester on the hill and West Chester at the depot, sits at the edge of the great Gray Court Meadows, a vast tract of black muck soil that had been drained to produce immense crops of hay and onions. The New York and Erie Railroad had a station here, and it was from Chester that the first shipment of fresh milk was sent to New York City in 1842, revolutionizing the dairy industry. The milk train had become a daily institution. The farmers of Chester, the Yelvertons, the Boards, the Durlans, the Seeleys, the Rose, the Bankers, and the Vales, brought their cans to the depot every evening. The Sugarloaf Mountain, a conical peak of slate and limestone, rises abruptly in the southern part of the town, serving as a landmark for travelers. The hamlet of Sugarloaf nestled at its foot, a quiet village of artisans and shoemakers. The Cromline Creek and the Black Meadow Creek drained the rich bottomlands, where the grass grew tall and sweet. The farmhouses of Chester were substantial, often built of brick or stone, reflecting the prosperity of the milk business. We travel further east toward the river, entering the town of Blooming Grove. As its name implies, this is a region of beauty and fertility. The topography is more broken than the Central Flats, with ridges of slate running northeast to southwest. The Shawangunk Mountain forms the eastern boundary, a high, rugged ridge of conglomerate rock that separates the interior from the river towns. The town is drained by the Moodna Creek, here called the Cromline, and its tributary, the Satterley Creek. These streams flow through deep glens and open meadows, providing water power for the grist mills and tanneries that serve the local population. The village of Washingtonville was the principal commercial center of Blooming Grove. Situated on the rich flats of the Moodna, it was a thriving village of white-painted houses and neat gardens. The Brooks family, the Moffats, and the Toothills were the leading citizens. The Moffat family was particularly noted for their carriage manufactory, which produced vehicles of superior quality. The village also contains the extensive vineyards of the Brooks family, who were among the first to prove that the soil of Orange County could produce wine to rival the vintages of Europe. The hamlet of Salisbury Mills was an industrial center where the creek provided power for paper mills. The village of Craigville was another mill seat, utilizing the rapid fall of the stream. The family names of Blooming Grove were illustrious. The Moffat family, the Toothills, the Strongs, the Brewsters, the Howells, the Hudsons, the Woodhulls, and the Seeleys were the pillars of the community. The Blooming Grove Church, a stately edifice standing in the open country, was the spiritual center. Its congregations gathered from the wealthy farms of the neighborhood. The soil here is a clay loam, strong and durable, producing heavy crops of wheat and rye. The landscape was a patchwork of golden grain fields and green pastures, framed by the purple wall of the Shawangunk. Finally, we approached the river once more in the town of Cornwall. This township was the gateway to the Highlands. The northern portion was rolling and fertile, but the southern portion was occupied by the majestic mountains of the Hudson Highlands. Storm King Mountain, then known as Butter Hill, rises precipitously from the river, its rocky face scarred by the elements. Crow's Nest stands beside it, a twin sentinel guarding the southern gate of the Newburgh Bay. Cornwall was evolved from a quiet farming town into a celebrated summer resort. The village of Canterbury, now Cornwall, nestled inland along the Moodna Creek, while Cornwall Landing on the river was the port of entry. The Townsend family, the Sutherlands, the Sands, the Clarks, and the Ryersons were prominent in the affairs of the town. South of Cornwall lies the rugged town of Monroe, including present-day Monroe, Tuxedo, and Woodbury. This was the iron district of the county. The Ramapo River flows southward through the town, and the hills were rich in magnetic iron ore. The Sterling Iron Works and the Greenwood Furnace were in operation, their charcoal fires burning day and night to smelt the ore. The village of Monroe, located on the Ramapo, was the commercial hub. The natural lakes of this region, Mombasa Lake, Round Island Lake, and Tuxedo Lake, Tuxedo Gem. The hills with their crystal waters. The family names of Monroe were those of the forge and the farm, the Smiths, the Knights, the Brooks, the Galloways, and the Townsends. Descending from the rugged heights of the Iron District, we enter the vast and opulent territory known as the town of Warwick. This township stands as the agricultural giant of the southern tier, bordering the state of New Jersey. It is a land of broad vales, limestone ridges, and slow-moving waters, including the rich valleys of the Wawayanda and the Pochuck. Here, the earth is deep and sweet, yielding pastures that were, in 1846, the envy of the state. The village of Warwick, located near the center of the town, along lies the banks of the Wawayanda Creek, a stream of significant volume that winds through the settlement shaded by ancient willows. At this time, the village possesses an air of permanence and established wealth, with solid frame and brick dwellings standing amidst expansive lawns. The Warwick Valley was famous for its livestock, particularly the herds of grazing cattle that fattened on the lush bluegrass. The roads radiating from the village lead to hamlets of singular beauty: Belleville, Florida, Amity, Edenville, and New Milford. To the north lies the village of Florida, a rich agricultural community located on the edge of the drowned lands, one known as the birthplace of William Henry Seward. Florida was a quiet market town, its streets lined with the wagons of farmers bringing their butter and cheese to the merchants. Belleville, nestled at the foot of the mountains on the road to Monroe, was a center of local industry. The Longhouse Creek tumbles down from the Highlands here, providing power for woolen mills and grist mills. The Wisner family, the Burts, and the Bradners were the captains of this enterprise. The topography of Warwick is varied by the presence of the Belleville Mountain and the Warwick Mountain, ridges of slate and granite that run parallel to the valleys. Between these ridges lie the fertile bottoms drained by the Pochuck Creek and the Double Kill. The soil is a heavy limestone loam, productive of wheat, corn, and rye. The drowned lands, a vast tract of peat and muck extending into the northern part of the town, were in the process of being reclaimed. The great drainage ditches, dug by the labor of many hands, were transforming the swamp into fields of black earth that produced hemp and onions of prodigious size. The family names of Warwick constitute a genealogy of the southern county. The Baird family, the Sanfords, the Benedicts, the Peltons, the Wheelers, the Demorests, the Van Duzers, and the Fegels were deeply rooted in the soil. The Old School Baptist Church in Warwick Village, with its simple architecture and surrounding burying ground, was a testament to the conservative faith of the inhabitants. The Amity Presbyterian Church serves the Western District, where the Layton and Post families maintain their homesteads. The industry of Warwick was almost exclusively agrarian, but of a high order. The butter produced here rivals that of Goshen and Hamptonburg. The Warwick firkin was a recognized standard of quality in the New York market. Moving westward from Warwick, we enter the town of Minisink, which in this era included the territory of the future towns of Wawayanda and Greenville. This is a region of high, rolling hills and deep valleys, forming the watershed between the Wallkill and the Delaware rivers. It is a land of pastoral quietude, settled by families who sought the isolation and fertility of the western slate ridges. The Rutgers Creek is the principal stream of this district, rising in the high hills of Greenville and flowing eastward to join the Wallkill. It is a rapid stream, prone to sudden freshets, and during the mid-19th century, it powered numerous sawmills and grist mills along its course. The Indigot Creek drains the northern portion, flowing through a valley of singular beauty. The topography here is rugged, with the Shawangunk Mountains forming a barrier to the west. The soil is a slaty loam, well adapted to grazing, and the hillsides were covered with flocks of merino and Saxon sheep. The village of Unionville, located on the New Jersey line, was a center of local trade. It was a gathering place for the farmers of the southern Minisink, who brought their wool and pork to the storekeepers. The village of Westtown, located on the high ridge to the north, commands a view of the entire Kittatinny Valley. It possesses an academy of high standing, where the sons of the farmers were embedded in Latin and geometry. The hamlet of Slate Hill, then known as Brookfield, and the settlement of Waterloo, later Millsburg, were quiet mill seats on the creeks. The genealogy of Minisink is distinct, reflecting a migration from Long Island and Connecticut. The Dunning family, the Hulse family, the Clarks, the Toothills, the Durlans, the Slawsons, the Canfields, and the Hortons were the owners of the land. The Lane family and the Reeves family were also numerous. These families lived in frame houses painted white, with large stone chimneys and expansive kitchens where the spinning wheels turned during the long winter evenings. To the west of Minisink lies the district of Greenville, a high plateau of slate and shale. In 1846, this was the frontier of the agricultural county. The roads were steep and rocky, winding through forests of chestnut and hemlock. The Shin Hollow settlement and the Smith's Corners neighborhood were isolated communities where the neighbors rely upon one another for all the necessities of life. The timber industry was significant here, with great loads of hoop poles and shingles being carted down to the canal or the railroad. The social life of this western section revolves around the general training days of the militia and the meetings of the local agricultural societies. The Minisink and Wawaanda Agricultural Society held annual fairs where the oxen were tested for strength, and the homespun cloth was judged for fineness. The old-school Baptist and Presbyterian churches provided the moral compass, their stark white steeples pointing upward from the green valleys of the Rutgers and the Indigot. Finally, we traverse the Shawangunk Ridge and descend into the deep, trough-like valley of the Neversink and the Delaware Rivers. This is the town of Deer Park, the westernmost extremity of Orange County. In 1846, this region was pulsing with a different kind of life than the pastoral interior. It was the era of the canal, and Deer Park was the great route for the anthracite coal of Pennsylvania on its way to the Hudson. The geography of Deer Park is defined by water and rock. The Neversink River, a clear, swift stream, flows through the center of the valley, joining the Delaware River at the Tri-States Rock. The Basherkill enters from the north, draining the wetlands. The Mongup River forms the western boundary. To the east, the Shawangunk Mountains rise like a wall, while to the west, the rocks of the Delaware tower over the water. The valley floor is a plain level of alluvial soil, known as the Peenpack and Mahakamack Flats, settled by French Huguenots and Dutch pioneers long before the Revolution. The defining feature of Deer Park in 1846 was the Delaware and Hudson Canal. This great artificial waterway follows the course of the Neversink and the Delaware, winding its way through the valley. Day and night, the canal boats, laden with black diamonds from the coal fields, glided silently along the water, drawn by mules on the towpath. The locks at Cutterbackville, Huguenot, and Port Jervis were centers of activity, where the boatmen gathered and the lock tenders turned the heavy wooden gates. The village of Port Jervis, located at the confluence of the rivers, was growing rapidly. It was a canal town of rough vigor, with warehouses, boatyards, and taverns serving the canal trade. The streets were laid out near the Delaware, and the sound of the boatman's horn was the clock of the village. Cutterbackville, further up the valley, was an older settlement, the seat of the ancient Cutterback family. The Huguenot settlement preserves the memory of the first pioneers. The genealogy of Deer Park is ancient and distinct. The Cutterbacks, the Goomers, the Swartouts, the Van Inwagens, the Westbrooks, the Van Ettens, and the Depews were the lords of the valley. Their low stone houses, built with thick walls to withstand the winters and the dangers of the frontier, still dotted the river flats. These families retained their Dutch heritage, and the language was still spoken by the elders in the 1840s. The industry of Deer Park was twofold: the commerce of the canal and the cultivation of the river bottoms. The flats produced immense crops of corn and wheat, while the mountains provided timber. The Basher Kill Swamp was a source of timber and basket-making materials. The quarries in the Shawangunks produced millstones of high quality, known as Esopus stone, which were shipped throughout the colonies. The contrast between the silent, ancient mountains and the busy, man-made canal creates a landscape of unique power and beauty. From the silent mountains of the west and the canal valleys of the frontier, the narrative returns to the rolling slate ridges of the central interior. It was here, in the townships of Goshen, Hamptonburg, Wallkill, and Chester, that the diverse threads of the county were woven into a single economic fabric, the production of the celebrated Orange County butter. In the year 1846, the dairy was the monarch of the county, and the central townships served as the throne room of this agrarian kingdom. The lush pastures of the Wallkill Valley, watered by limestone springs and winding creeks, supported immense herds of native and Devon cattle. The rhythm of the day was governed by the milking hour. At sunrise and sunset, the farmers, the Bulls, the Seeleys, the Moffats, and the Toothills were found in the barns. The milk was placed in shallow tin pans in cool spring houses, where the cream rose thick and yellow. It was then churned by hand, worked free of buttermilk, salted with pure Liverpool salt, and packed into firkins made of white oak. These firkins, holding 80 pounds each, were the currency of the county. Stamped with the maker's name, they were carted to the depots at Goshen and Chester, or the Wharves at Newburgh. The Orange County stamp was a guarantee of excellence in the markets of New York City, commanding the highest prices from the epicures of the metropolis. This industry supports a vast network of coopers, drovers, and forwarding merchants, binding the hill farmer to the city merchant in a web of commerce. By this era, the railroad had also introduced the milk train, allowing fresh milk to be transported rapidly to the city, further increasing the wealth of the central districts. Beyond the dairy, the social fabric of the county was knit together by the district school. There were over 200 of these humble structures scattered across the landscape, standing at the crossroads of Minisink and Crawford, in the hollows of Monroe, and on the ridges of Mount Hope. Built of red brick or white-painted frame, they were the beacons of civilization in the rural districts. Inside these walls, the youth of the county learned the rudiments of the English language. The names of the teachers were often the names of the neighbors: Miss Sarah Wells, Mr. Sarah Wells, John Bradner, Miss Mary Wisner, and Mr. Samuel Denton. In the winter months, the schoolhouse was the center of intellectual life, where the spelling school and the debating society drew families from miles around to share in the warmth of the wood stove and the community. The religious life of the county was equally pervasive, the skyline of every village. Warwick, Montgomery, Newburgh, Middletown was pierced by the inspiration of faith. In the open country, the meeting house stood as a silent sentinel over the fields. The Presbyterian faith was dominant in the Scots, Irish districts of Goshen and Wallkill, while the Friends held sway in Cornwall, and the Reformed Dutch in Deer Park and Montgomery. The graveyards adjoining these churches were the archives of the county's history. Here, under the shade of ancient locusts and cedars, rested the pioneers. The mossy stones bore the names that we have recited throughout this survey: the Eagers, the Everetts, the Sanfords, the Millspaws, and the Dubois family. The care of these sacred grounds was a community duty, a sign of respect for those who had cleared the forest and broken the sod. The year 1846 draws to its close. The candles in the farmhouses of Goshen are flickering low. The sloops are moored for the night in Newburgh and Cornwall. The fires in the hearts of Warwick and Montgomery have burned down to glowing embers. The cattle are stabled in the great barns of Wallkill. The sheep are folded in the hills of Minisink. A profound, velvet silence descends upon the landscape. The history book is closed. The dust settles back upon the archives. The figures of the past, the pioneers, the drovers, the school teachers, and the farmers, fade back into the mists of time, leaving behind only the enduring earth and the memory of a people who loved it well. And thus we close the entry for Orange County. Rest well.